Welcome to the No Name Brand Podcast. My name is Sashka Hanarappal, actress, singer, dancer, turned brand marketing, sales, and advertising strategist who brands your soul. And each week I bring you an inspiring person or message to help you discover your undergod, turn up your leadership notches, challenge the status quo, because you're fast and furious with a powerful message to share with the world. Thank you for taking time out with me today, and without further ado, let's get our creative and wisdom juices flowing. Hello, everybody. We are back again this week, and I have a question that I'm going to be starting off with. Can you remember what you were thinking of at the age of 4? Me? I was just starting my career in acting, singing, dancing, and career I use in inverted commas. Hilarious. Then I didn't know it was a career. And I think all I could think of was all the costumes, choreographies, and getting things right. Our next guest, however, her mind was wondering all about feelings and the state of happiness in people. Why some had it and why some didn't, and how you could get it. At 4! Had they existed then, she probably would have injected minion blood into folks to ensure that they were happy and didn't suffer so much in trying to find happiness. Instead, she was led through psychology, PhD, medical school, acceptance, turning down Harvard. Some people do that too, you know. And eventually to Thailand, India, and Nepal, and Dalai Lama and other Buddhist teachers, trying to figure out why we suffer. Our next guest is sharp, frank, fearless, a sex therapist, author, speaker, with a rare combination of academic credibility, humor, my kind of gal, straight talk, definitely my kind of gal, and life-changing advice. Yes, please. She's a sought-after media psychologist and relationship expert. Why? Well, because she jumpstarts couples' love lives, gets that juicy passion flowing and lasting a lifetime. And she combines cutting-edge love and sex therapy with mindfulness. So important to help couples that can cut through resistance and ignite the connection and sizzle they think they've lost. How many times did you think you've lost that? Get this. She's also highly successful and was awarded the Fulbright Scholar, and has conducted extensive research on sexual behavior and what causes love relationships to succeed or fail. And relationships, you know, life and business kind of link together. So when things aren't happening in the bedroom, they're probably going to be suffering in the business too, and vice versa. And those things generally make us happy. So with her groundwork, she created the Become Passion online workshop for couples. So, what do you say we put our hearts and ears together and welcome the one and only Dr. CHERYL FRASER. Hello, CHERYL.
Hello, darling. I'm just grinning here in my little house in Canada. I feel like I'm on stage to roaring millions.
Now we just need the music.
Exactly. Do that, like bump a beat, get everybody up. That's what I like to do when I'm live. I bet you do too.
I do. Yes. It's so good to have you here. I remember seeing your book, just the cover, and I thought, oh my God, I like this, because I'm a visual person. And then I go a little bit stalking. Then I see the website, and then I go and find a little bit more about you. And I was like, oh, I have to have you on the show and learn all about your goodness. So I want to dive in first and start off with asking how did you make the switch from medical school psychology to sex therapist and Dharma teacher?
Yeah, it sounds like a bit of a mishmash, actually. Sometimes I say I'm a Buddhist sex therapist and people's jaw drop open and they think, is that a punchline? Did I miss the setup? Really, it is about trying to figure out how to be happy and how to live an incredibly passionate, abundant life. And as I said, at 4 years old, I was kind of a weird kid. I was observing that some people were kind of mean to each other and there was bullying happening. Nothing dramatic, but just why aren't we kinder? Why aren't we happier? You know, I'm blessed to be born in a lovely country with tremendous freedom and a comfortable life. Why aren't we a lot more happy? And so I was an existential kid. I think probably a lot of us listening, and I suspect you, young lady, were as well and still are, really what's the meaning of life. As an adolescent, I would look for what I call deep conversations, and it was a bit difficult to find, but you find your soulmate best friend and you can finally talk about life and meaning and your desperate sexual passion for Sean Cassidy, the pop singer, which was my, that's the meaning of life. I'm going to marry him. It didn't work out, by the way, spoiler alert. He never did come looking. So I continued questing and looking, and I did the traditional route. I studied psychology, science of the mind, science of emotions, science of love and relationships. And then I became fascinated in the physiology and the neurology of how the brain works. So I applied to med school and I was accepted. And then I thought about what it would be to be a physician day in, day out, fixing broken arms and sniffly noses. And I thought, that's not it. I want deeper. I want the meaning part. And in Canada, really training separates at that point. And if you want the meaning psychological part, you go into clinical psychology and get a PhD versus going the medical route into psychiatry. So that's what I did. I was very blessed to study with amazing people here and in the States. That's where I was accepted to Harvard for my postdoc. And my mom likes to tell people, my daughter turned down Harvard. That's like her bragging rights. And so I ended up in my early 30s with all the best training in the world in love and sex and meaning and emotion. And I didn't have the answer to the question, why aren't we happier? And that's where Buddhism and the study of mindfulness, meditation, and Tibetan and Theravadan Buddhism came in. So after I got my lofty PhD and I was supposed to go be a famous Ivy League professor and all that stuff, instead I grabbed a backpack and went to Asia for 7 months to the great dismay of all my professors. And that's where I was really delving deeper into a more simple answer that, in my view, Buddhist philosophy gives to why aren't we happy. And at a very basic level, we're not happy because we're not good at accepting reality as it is. We cling to wanting the good reality. Everything changes. This is the first teaching of Buddhist philosophy. Everything changes. Everything's impermanent. Eventually, you and I will leave the planet, as will our children, our parents, our loved ones. The tree outside my window goes through changes every moment, every season. And when things change in the direction we like, we think that's just dandy. But of course, the law of averages in life itself has taught us that things often change in directions we don't care for. Medical diagnoses, broken hearts, our beloved pets pass away. We stub our toe. We have a flat tire when we go to our vehicle and we're late for our appointment. Some of the changes are not what we want. In a nutshell, Buddhist philosophy answered my question, why aren't we happier? By saying we suffer when we want things to be different than they are. It's that simple. So if you think of business, if you think of your love relationship, don't we suffer when we want our spouse to be different than they are in this moment? We want him or her to have remembered to romance us this morning or make our favorite eggs Benedict with salmon, and they didn't. They were busy or grumpy or preoccupied, and suddenly we suffer. We're angry or upset or a little bit wounded about our relationship. But really the key to great love, great happiness, great success is in our head. That may sound like a pat answer, and it's actually deeply profound. Because if I'm happy or not happy, it's in my mind. If I'm relating to reality and reality is unpleasant or tragic right now, it is still up to me in my mind to come into grace, to come into alignment with this reality, even when it's terrible, terminal cancer diagnosis. And I can still have grace and happiness and joy and be compassionate and loving through my dying process, which may sound a little heavy, but let's get real. We're all going to die eventually. So it was a meandering route, but not meandering in a way that was sort of cherry picking whatever came in front of me. Or there was always a drive. Why? Why aren't we more abundantly, truly happy and engaged? Why aren't we able to be more open and compassionate? Why do love relationships and sexual relationships with someone we cherish, someone we commit to, if that's our path, why do they pale? Why do we end up so often miserable? Why is there so much unhappiness and lust and love? Even in our family lives, just why aren't we living fully and completely until we die? So that's really been the through line.
All right. So how did the sexual part come into play, or the sexual therapy?
To be honest, Sean Cassidy, back to me being, a 10-year-old girl madly in love with a pop star, and the longing and the soulmate fantasy and the idea that someone could come take me away and keep me happy forever. And I was a lustful little girl. I think we all were. And I had all these sexual passions and sexual fantasies about him. But I also had this very interesting internal belief, and I'm not entirely sure where it came from, that I wanted deep love and deep commitment and deep joy, as well as deep, passionate sexuality. And to be revealing, my own choice as a young woman was I chose to wait and lose my virginity with someone that I was in love with and that was in love with me, and that we were in a committed relationship, and we had all sorts of glorious sexual explorations without actually having intercourse yet. And then when we did, it was really a positive experience. And so few women have that story. As a sex therapist, I've heard hundreds, if not thousands, of first sexual encounter stories. And it's so rare that early sexuality, especially for girls and young women, is positive. Frankly, that they even have an orgasm is very, very rare in early sexual experience. I was always fascinated with it. And I think it was really my internal struggle to bring lust and love together, to express and inhabit my own sexuality, but in a way that was in alignment with my heart energy and my feeling that lust and love can coexist. And sort of running around getting laid wasn't a model that I was interested in, but I had all this profound sexual and sensual energy. As my own sexual erotic journey unfolded, it of course flavored my work as a psychologist and as a practitioner, and I became more and more interested in couples therapy and sexual therapy. So that was always a through line as well. And then in the Buddhist work I teach and participate in, part of my trainings in the Tibetan tantric traditions, where sexual energy is utilized, even just sitting in a meditation posture, solo on a meditation cushion. But the power of the sexual energy is used to bring bliss. It's called bringing bliss and emptiness together for like a mental, emotional, almost an enlightenment bliss simply in your own mind as you work with those energies. And of course, one can, in a more secular way, practice that with your partner, where through breath connection, emotional connection, and erotic connection while lovemaking, or simply while sitting breathing together, you can bring lust and love together. And you know, it's one of the greatest pains, I would say, and greatest sufferings in our modern world, in our modern relationship, is the splitting off of sexual, sensual energy from the heart and from the mind. Sometimes say, let's remember our groin is connected to our heart and our mind. And when we split it off into affairs, into an erotic sexual fantasy life we never share with our partner, into a pornography life we never share with our partner, we're living this kind of dual life where we haven't connected sexuality and our erotic and our what I call our dark sexual energy. I talk about this in the book and in what I offer to people. How do we bring, and let me clarify, when I say dark sexual energy, I don't mean dark as in bad. I mean like yin yang, the black and the white melding together. Our dark erotic passion that many of us explored in our early dating life with our beloved, but we let it fall by the wayside through our longer relationship. How do we bring those together? How do we connect the heart, the mind, and the so-called groin energy together and not split it off? To be very simple, how do we combine lust and love? Giant problem in long-term relationship. Giant problem for a lot of us, even when we're single. How do we bring these together? How do we co-create passion with the one we love? And if our chosen path is monogamy and the attempt at fidelity, how do we make monogamy hot again? How do we re-eroticize our relationship with the one we love right now?
And that's one of the main things that will make us happy.
Yeah, in terms of, if you think of your listeners and you and I and those of us that have abundant lives, right? For many of us have beautiful families, partners, children, and these amazing business lives where we have some freedom to, we're not necessarily 9 to 5 at someone else's behest. We have freedom, we get to travel, we have extraordinary lives. And I would say one of the main, if not the number one complaints of adults is, how's your marriage? How's your long-term relationship? It's okay. We're pretty good. I call it marriage incorporated. We're running our love relationship like a business in that we co-parent well, we tag team well, we get the kale into those kids' smoothies, We have our vacations if we're blessed to be able to create that. And yet, where are you and I as partners? We're sort of running parallel. And the business is running well. Nobody died. The kids don't have scabies. We're doing pretty well. But pretty well is not good enough. So there's fundamental psychological research that indicates if your business and your health are going fairly well and your marital relationship's in trouble, you're not happy, you're not connecting, you're not doing well psychologically. And vice versa. If your marriage or romantic relationship is strong, well, it's a source of abundance and connection for you, and your business isn't going well, finances are in trouble, some other things are going badly in your world, you're doing pretty well. In other words, the strength and connection and happiness of our erotic romantic relationship is the number one predictor of satisfaction and happiness in terms of our general well-being. And I think we all know that. If we're having a kick-ass business day and yet we're out of kilter with our sweetheart. We've had a this morning, and we're, and it's just there, that sense of disconnect, that sense of anxiety. Should I text him or her, or will they make the first move? All that nonsense. What are we in grade 9? But anyway, we know we have an off day, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember, oh God, how many years ago is this now? When did Eat, Pray, Love come out? And then Elizabeth Gilbert wrote the book.
Might have been called Commitment or something like that, her next
yes,
book.
That's right. And there was a lot of propaganda going around, like people were questioning the why. Were we actually meant to have relationships and marriage? Were we actually meant to be together in that sense? Was it just enforced because of Catholicism? What is your viewpoint on that?
I do not think we are meant. I do not think it's destined. I do not think there's a soulmate, or I'd be married to Sean Cassidy. I think the modern concept of marriage, which is 100 or not much more years old, is you need to be my everything. My lover, my mate, my co-parent, my co-provider, my companion, my court jester, fulfill everything. And that, I think, is a very dangerous model.
Yeah.
And the approach I take, and where I find Buddhist philosophy is so helpful for this, what we're discussing is, no, I don't think we're meant to spend 40 or 50 years with one person and be fulfilled by that. And sexually, we're not programmed by our caveman bodies to want long-term lust with one person. We're programmed for the chase, the conquer, and the mating, which is why the biochemistry of falling in love is so bloody awesome. It is literally the biochemistry of obsessive compulsive disorder. Neurological scans of someone falling in love and with obsessive compulsive disorder are similar. What does that mean? It means I literally can't stop thinking about you. I get those rushes of lust in the middle of the day when I remember that juicy kiss, and I wonder if we're going to make love again tonight, and la da da da. It's easy, right? It's like we're on a roller coaster of lust and passion. This is our early biological programming. So what we're, I believe, meant to do as cave people with bodies from 100,000 years ago is find and mate and make small cave person. That's what we're meant to do. And that part's easy. After that, we're probably meant, you and I, as females back then, we're meant to hang out in the cave and tan the hides and boil the meat or whatever. And the guys are meant to go out for a long period without us and chase the herds and slay them. So we're not meant to do 50 years of that. What happens biochemically and emotionally, and what's so painful for so many of us, is it feels like the thrill and the passion of falling in love fade, and he's okay, she's okay. And of course, this applies to gay, cross-gender, any relationships of any form. I'm using heteronormal language because it's just easier in a quick conversation, but him or her that we love, we don't feel passion anymore. We certainly don't have must find, mate, and conquer energy. So what do we get? We get the contentment phase, and that is a biochemical shift into decorating the cave and tanning the hides or whatever. No, I don't think we're meant to be together in the long term, and that gives us a very interesting modern conundrum. If we choose to be together in the long term, how do we keep it hot and interesting? How do we get back on that roller coaster now and then? How do we find new depths with each other? And Buddhist philosophy says, whether or not I'm interested in you is entirely in my head. So if you and I have been in a relationship for 27 years, and I know everything about Shaska and whatever, she's great. She's my girl, but she doesn't surprise me. I say, how was your day? You say, fine. How was yours? I say, fine. And then we watch Netflix. No wonder we're bored. But the boredom's in my mind. It's not in you. If you were to meet a new person tomorrow at work or at the coffee shop, started to speak with you, they would, of course, find you fascinating because you're a fascinating person. There's that quote, I am vast, I contain multitudes. All of us have endless layers to us. If I'm bored with my mate, it's because my mind is bored, not because my mate is boring. And that's, of course, where attraction outside the relationship can happen and tempting and straying can happen. Because we forget to find each other fascinating. We forget to treat each other like a new landscape. Buddhist philosophy is pretty simple. It says this present moment is all we've got. This present moment, this present breath, if I'm practicing meditation or mindfulness, this present conversation with you right now is the totality of everything that's actually happening. And it's fascinating if I bring my mind to it. You're fascinating if you're my spouse of 76 years, if we're 100. You're still fascinating if I say, tell me, teach me something new about you right here, right now. So I don't think we're meant to do this long-term committed relationship thing. I think it's a very fascinating choice. I think it's a noble, sacred enterprise. And what I see and what sex therapy research and psychological research shows is that mainly we fall into, again, what I dub marriage incorporated, and we trundle along okay as buddies, but we really don't cultivate and recreate and reignite the passion, both the sexual and the romantic mind passion, being fascinated with each other. As I say, fall in love over and over again with the one you're already with. So if we're going to choose to be in long-term relationship, I'm challenging each of us to make it far more romantic, erotic, fun, joyful, and not wait till there's a shock, not wait till our best friend's partner dies in a car accident to wake us up and to look at our spouse again and say, oh my gosh, I'm so blessed that you're here with me, and choosing to do this insane thing, which is walk together over the long term in some manner of commitment, in some manner of sharing our lives.
So some ideas came to my mind now. 2 questions. So I'm going to say them now before I forget them. 1, have you found for yourself your solution, the purpose or the solution between love and lust? And 2, when we're younger and we get bored, kids today as well, when they get bored, there's quick solutions. Do we bring that into everything that we then do? What are kind of methodologies that we can teach, not only ourselves as adults, but pass them on to our children as well, because it'll affect what business they go into, what career they go into, what relationship they go into. Finish what you started. Is that a good thing or a bad thing, or how should they be going about that?
Beautiful. Let me answer the second one first. Yes, I think by nature as humans, we look for quick fixes. We look for pleasure. We'd rather feel good than feel unpleasant. I do believe in the modern digital world where distractions, there's constant, and our brains being biochemically retrained to want the hit of something new. Much more so than when you and I were kids and there was 3 television channels and you watched one program right through, and you were like, today you're watching one program and like half the screen gets taken up with an active ad for the next thing that's coming. So our brains are actually quite scientifically being trained to need more, better, quicker impulse. And that's related to dopamine. When you check your phone, when it bings and you check your phone, a little burst of dopamine is released, which is the same thing that happens when you have a hit of cocaine. So we are being trained to need a quick solution to boredom. Mindfulness, people might roll their eyes and I don't care. Mindfulness is the answer, because mindfulness is training the mind to focus on one thing, to allow distractions to fade into the background. When a distraction then grabs our mind and pulls it, we refocus our attention on what's actually happening. Let's say it's breath meditation, really noticing this single breath in and out. Oh, now I'm thinking about whether the dog's going to bark. I got pulled by a distraction. Then I come back, I restart, focusing on a single breath in and out. If you train your mind methodically, starting with, let's say, 5 minutes a day, if you can't manage 30, and then working up to 30 minutes daily-ish, 4 or 5 days a week, people can go to my website and listen to some guided meditations to help them if they like. We will train our mind. It is not easy, and it is the antithesis of a quick fix. It is a long, methodical retraining of our mind to where we aren't bored so much. We're just simply being now, looking out the window. How would it be if your kids were looking out the window on a long car drive and they were content? They weren't bored. When are we going to get there? Are we there yet? And let's say, our husbands as well, not just our kids. Looking out the window, and just like right now, I've got a beautiful vista out the window. It's sunny. I'm looking at trees. I live on an island in the Pacific Northwest, and I see trees, mountains, birds. There isn't a quick fix that will work in the long term. That's the take-home message. Real quick, Buddhism 101. Suffering is when we want something other than what's happening. So if I'm bored, by definition, I want something other than this. This isn't contenting me. I'm bored. I want something else. So I start seeking. In the act of seeking, we're leaning away from the present and we're looking for something else to make us feel better. And that makes us an addict, an experience addict. And it means if we play it out, it means I will run from, as I say, think of a crow with a shiny object. I'll run from shiny object to shiny object to shiny object. From latte to television show to orgasm to meal to fun conversation with a friend to checking Facebook. And I'll never be okay and content with whatever's happening. So what we can train our kids is in mindfulness, and kids take to it way better than adults do. They love to imagine. They can imagine a shiny bubble coming in and resting in their chest, and they just feel the shiny bubble and they breathe in and out. And then they can watch a thought come, and they understand better that thoughts aren't real. They're like a thought bubble, like a cartoon thought bubble comes in, and they can look at that thought that says, I'm bored, I'd like to go outside, and go, that's just a thought. I don't have to act on it. Kids are mindfulness masters. They're much better than us. So that's a bit of a long answer to this idea. Are we trained to want something to make us feel better quickly? And the answer is yes. And if we play that out, and just simply I invite people to notice that in their own life today. Don't take my word for it. Don't take the Buddha's word for it. In your own life, notice when you're a little uncomfortable, slightly bored, slightly anxious, slightly sad, slightly restless. What's going on? And what you'll notice is you want something other than this. And if you can then go, oh, if you can let go of wanting something, this is like Buddhism in one sentence. If you can let go of wanting something else, you're content right where you are. That's the key to happiness. So there's deeper teachings there, but that's the overview.
I love
and then you asked, because you're a cheeky monkey and you're putting me on the spot, you asked, what's my solution to lust and love? And I've got to say, it's still a work in progress. I'm in a 5-year relationship. We were married a few months ago. Because, I'm willing to take this to the streets and say, okay, how do we do this long-term? Obviously, 5 years isn't long-term, but it's considered long-term. Anything after about a year to 18 months is where that biochemistry of lust and love settles down. So we used to make love twice a day. Now it's like, oh my God, it's been a month. Let's get it together, honey, because we're real people, even though I'm a sex expert. And so one of the solutions, and it's not very romantic, but it's very good advice, is schedule sex. I like to say, treat sex like exercise. Decide you're going to the gym. Go even when you don't feel like it, and you'll always be glad you did. And that is part of it, because if we're relying on, and I talk a lot about the difference between arousal and desire. Arousal is physical arousal. I feel turned on and horny in my body. Desire is a mental state where I mentally desire to be intimate with you. I might fantasize and feel turned on in my head, or I might simply decide, it's been a couple of weeks. We've been busy and traveling and we haven't made love in a while. I desire to get close to you. And here's the key. There's some important research actually out of UBC in Vancouver here that indicates the majority of long-term couples start making love from a place of sexual neutrality. Now, what does that mean? It means they start making love when neither of them's particularly turned on. Wow. That's the most important sentence of this whole podcast. Start making love when neither of you's particularly turned on. Allow the touches, the caresses, if I can be open, and I think I can, go down on each other, turn each other's bodies on. If somebody's like, honey, I'm so stressed right now, but okay. Say, can I go down on you? Yeah, okay. And after a while, the body usually will catch up. The mind will settle down, will become turned on, will make love. It might not be epic. It might not be Kama Sutra number 77. It might be, as I am fond of saying, the typical nipple, nipple, crotch, good night. Our kind of routine. We all know that one. I touch you here, you touch me there, and it goes well, and hopefully we both are satisfied. And either we both orgasmed or we at least felt close and erotic, and that was a good start. That's fine. Good old pedestrian, I'm kind of tired, but it's important sex is really fine, because what it does is it keeps our, it sounds like we jump out of the car and have sex with a pedestrian. That's not quite what I meant. But if you're waiting around for the grand sweeps of lust and love that swept us away in the early days, you'll be waiting around too often. Those can happen sometimes. Great. Manufacture them sometimes with an erotic weekend away and getting massages and doing the advice we've all heard, and most of us are not following, where we say, let's, send the kids away to grandma's and let's have this be kind of an erotic weekend and let's get some toys and let's play. Sort of gourmet sex on occasion, regular meal sex most of the time, and fast food sex when you can get it, 2-minute quickie or And I'm not just talking about sex itself, where we have oral or intercourse sex. I'm talking about kiss goodbye in an erotic way. Kiss goodbye with tongue, not a grandma peck on the cheek. Hug hello, hold each other, take 3 breaths in and out, and ground our bodies together. Leave sexy notes. When your partner goes away on a trip or when you go away, I love, to get people to put an erotic note hidden in their luggage. So they're unpacking their clothes in the hotel and they get some dirty note from their sweetheart, Keep that energy alive. And that's what The book's called Buddha's Bedroom for a reason. It brings together the teachings we're talking about, the teachings of mindfulness and Buddhist philosophy to marriage and the erotic life. And it has a number of exercises along the lines of what we're talking about to kind of remake your relationship. And even after 5 years, my beloved and I, we need to be a lot more mindful about our erotic life, our romantic life. We can easily fall into fairly comfortable patterns that are ho-hum marriage incorporated. Instead of saying, let's be exceptional, let's create an exceptional relationship over and over again. And it's what almost all of us desire. I gave a small event locally here. I live in a small town, and we gave an event the other night based on the book. The book's new. It's only come out a couple months ago. So we just advertised it a little bit, put up a few flyers, come learn the 3 keys to passion. Come learn how to recreate or reignite the passion you used to have, how to bring your relationship out of boredom into spark again. And the place was packed, and there was a breadth of people. I'd say the young folks were maybe late 20s, and we had people up to their 60s and 70s, a lot of long-term marriages, 20 years, 30 years. I gave a prize to the longest-term marriage. It was 40 years married.
Wow.
And they got the little sex toy kit, and they were very embarrassed. It was awesome. I'm like, here you go. Here's a cock ring. That ought to spark things up. And the point of that is people want more passion, and they want more love. They desire this. And that excites me to no end because they haven't given up. They go, oh, there's a talk, honey, let's go. And that is just inspiring because it's never too late to start again. It's never too late to experience this present breath right here, right now. It's never too late to learn to show up and see the tree and see its beauty and to look in your eyes through our Zoom link and connect with this new beautiful person. It's never too late. And as discouraged as we might feel, one breath at a time with some effort and commitment, like anything in our life, parenting, business building, our fitness, anything in our life takes effort. And yet we think our marriage, our love relationship should be easy. It should just take care of itself, like a garden we don't tend. And then we're surprised when it fades. We shouldn't be, but we can begin again right here, right now.
I have lots of questions. Time is running out, so I'm going to keep it short. I would like to know, when did you decide, hang on a moment, this can actually solve problems, what I'm doing? And what was that journey like from when you started to where you are now, that it went from passion to profit? And where are you going now with your brand? Where is it moving to? Like when we leave this earth, what are you leaving behind that when you come back, you start there from where you left off?
I would say the passion is to awaken the planet one lover at a time. That if we can create peace and integrity and connection, and with our lover, it's erotic passion. If we can work out our demons with each other, our anger, our selfishness, our confusion, which so often, of course, show up in our deep relationship, we in time can bring way more compassion, love, and integrity to our work, to our parenting, to our friendships, to our community, to our enemies, to the world. And the world is beleaguered, and there's a lot of hate and darkness reemerging when we all thought we were getting somewhere, and that is the life mission. From passion to profit, what a brilliant question. The work, I've been in private practice seeing couples and individuals for about 20 years as a psychologist and sex therapist. So that's always been where I've applied this search and this knowledge to helping people on a one-by-one or couple-by-couple basis. But about 10 years ago, I knew there was a larger audience and a larger message. And I had a wise mentor that said, CHERYL, there are many good psychologists and marriage therapists who can see couples in their private practice, but you can take it to a much larger audience. Like you, actually, we haven't had a chance to jam on this, but my original trainings as an actor, an improv comic, a speaker. So I had that larger audience delight the way you do to teach and to give the message. So briefly, about 12 years ago, I created a couples weekend. This is kind of before online business. So I did it the old school way. You'd rent a hotel room and you'd give a talk, and at the end you'd sell your product through your funnel. And my product was, a couple $1,000 couples weekend, which was logistically very unwieldy. And we did it. It was super successful because people are dying for this message. The first time we did a bit of advertising, I gave a free 3-hour evening, and at the end of it, I would sell the weekend. And we didn't know if anybody but my mother was going to come. And the room held 200 people, and we had to turn heaps of people away at the door. That's where I first realized people are desperate for this message. How can I reawaken passion? How can I reignite my marriage? And not just sexually. How can I be happier, communicate more deeply? The work I teach is all of it, not just sexuality. But it was too unwieldy for me as a business model. I would have had to invest a ton of money, get a business manager. I was basically frightened, and I kind of copped out. The model of live events, it would have succeeded, I think, but I went, you know what? I let it go, and I actually quit it all and did long 3-month retreats in India and elsewhere. I really went into the spiritual life, and then everything circled back around. This is actually the preface to my book is what we're talking about, which is it circled back around. I was at a Buddhist course. Someone was asked to teach that evening about sexuality and Buddhism, and a very brave woman, Jack Cornfield, the wonderful, wonderful Buddhist teacher, his wife, Trudy Goodman, at the time they weren't yet married, she gave a talk about sex and Buddhism, and she was eviscerated. The audience ripped her apart. They couldn't handle it. They were triggered by the material. She didn't do anything wrong. And I looked around and I saw that all these people who meditate, all these people, they can't handle sexuality. And at the end, Trudy said, is there anybody here who has expertise in sexuality? I don't. I just was trying to offer. If you do, please come talk to me. I went to talk to her. And she said, you should teach this. I said, no. I don't teach sex anymore. I just teach Buddhism. And she looked at me and she said, why don't you teach both?
Yeah.
Then things started changing. Then I learned I'm not much of an online person. I like to meditate and walk my dogs rather than be on social media. But then I learned about the online business world that you are so adept at. And I realized it's the model I was trying to do in the super expensive, cumbersome way. Get people in a room, pay for the hotel, teach them, and then sell your product, offer your product. And I realized, oh my goodness, online is perfect to reach the world. Anyone who wants a better relationship and has an internet connection. And I am actually debuting the online couples course in September. I postponed it for a year and a half to write the book. When the publisher approached me, the course was ready to launch. It was recorded and ready to go, but I couldn't do both. So I took the last 18 months to write the book. The book's now been published, and we're refreshing the couples course. So it will be a variation on the live weekend, which of course is very difficult. If you've got 3 young kids, how do you fly to Vancouver or Seattle or LA or London to do a couples weekend? I'll offer that later for those that can do it. But you can be at home with your darling and work on your relationships. So the profit hopefully is to come, because the profit helps to get reinvested in the work to share the message. The beautiful thing, in my view, about Buddhist teaching, like any beautiful sacred spiritual teaching, is that it's offered freely. So all of the meditation retreats I teach, all the weekends, all the talks, they're all free. There's no cost. And so the beauty is through the couples work to help and serve so many couples, and also allow that to bring in an income to support me to do all the pro bono and heart offerings that so many of us do. So I like to help people, and I love to teach, and I love, like you, to communicate about passionate ideas and reach people's heart, and to allow them to affect change, to suffer less, to bring more happiness in. Because I fervently believe when we start to sort out more of our individual stuff, we're just a better human on the planet. That's where we've got more time, more energy for the sacred, for compassion, for changing the world. And those words become a little bit of a hackneyed phrase these days, and I'd like to reclaim them. That we can change the world. And it's probably not by posting an opinion on Facebook. It's a little more deep than that. It's human to human. And when we're miserable, when we're exhausted, when we're fighting our own inner world, fighting with our mate, not drawing energy from our family and our love, we're not that available for the world or our business. So I hope that answered that in some way or other.
It certainly did. It certainly did. We could chat forever. We are like on such this, I'm like typical, yes, observe everything, read between the lines, ask why. But we will do a part 2 of this. I can definitely see we'll be doing a part 2. CHERYL, last question. I would like your take on 3 of my values. And the first being, creativity for you is...
Creativity for me is orgasm, and I mean that not in the physical, joyful spurt of orgasm, but I mean orgasm in the true sense is energy moving through and being shared. Heart connected with spirit. And I would say that's what creativity is, connecting heart and spirit and unleashing energy that's bound up in our bound up emotional states of hurt and anger, our bound up stories and insecurities, our bound up past traumas and past difficulties, working to release that energy so it can move through. And then you're creative no matter what you're doing. Even if you're moving blue widgets from the blue widget box to the red widget box, you can do that as a creative act.
Love that. I'm going to do that. I'm going to cut my onions today and just get, I'm in an orgasm right now.
Yes.
Passion for you is?
The present moment. Because unless we can bring our full concentration and experience, our 5 senses and our mind to experiencing this sip of tea, then we're not passionate. We're kind of phoning it in. We're on the surface of our life. So passion is full embodiment of mind and body in the present moment. And that's passion.
Love that. And the last one, wisdom for you is?
The teachings of the Buddha and other wise beings, but that's the teaching that resonates for me. It's wisdom and compassion. It's full responsibility for our state. It's mastering our mind, or rather riding our mind. I think of it as like riding a powerful horse, where you're in alignment with your mind and it's not, the horse isn't running around and I'm hanging onto its tail being bashed about and being dragged. I'm riding the horse. That's wisdom. I have access to all of the power, but I am channeling it and pulling it back when that's skillful and letting it run when that's skillful.
I love that. Oh, so much wisdom here. So much wisdom. CHERYL, thank you so much for being with us here today. And to all our listeners, you can find out more about CHERYL on Dr. Dr. CHERYL with CHERYL Fraser, FRASEA, so not from Outlander Fraser, .com. You can find out more about the meditations, her beautiful book that she's been mentioning that is available on Amazon, The Buddha Bedroom. It is a beautiful cover as well, because you know me, I love my visuals. You can find out more over there and get in line and on the wait list for September for the couples therapy, the Bedroom Become Passion Online.
Become Passion online course. I'll be coaching, and as any really good online course, a lot of content. Yeah. And again, just visit the website for free content. There's some videos of me teaching about Tantra, about desire and arousal, which I briefly mentioned here. And people that are curious can follow up there and just learn and share and be passionate and creative and filled with wisdom.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so, so much for being with us here. And for our listeners, remember to be the change that you want to see in the world and to do it fast and furious. And from our teachings today, with mindfulness and a mixture and a pinch of lust and love. Thank you so much, CHERYL.
Thank you. It's been a delight.
Thank you, everyone. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye. Dang, that was just supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. I enjoyed having you on board, and please do me and you a favor. Head on over to iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. Click subscribe, and a super bonus, leave your review and you stand a chance of being announced and advertised on the show. I'm always striving to ensure that your brand is uplifted and empowered. Remember, done is better than perfect. So be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and send in your feedback too. You're the absolute best. Keep rocking.